guys, welcome once again to the Raj Kaul Podcast. Today I've got an amazing guest who my wife discovered. My wife discovers all these artists and I've started listening to his music as well. But before you do that, guys, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the, if I can speak properly, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit follow on Spotify or Apple, wherever you are, and leave a review, guys. But today, over to our main guy, Vizano. How are you, bro?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I'm doing really well. It's a Sunday, and even though it's a Sunday, I like to stay productive. And otherwise, yeah, can't complain. Yeah, all good on my side, thanks.
I've got to say,
How are you?
sorry, what were you saying?
How are you doing?
I'm doing very good, thanks. Just really busy. I'm getting myself more into production, more into I'm a singer, as I was speaking to you off air, but starting to get in more in production. So I'm really excited actually about this because I've heard your production and it's off the charts, to be fair. Yeah, wow. It's great, especially the house, so the electronic side of it. But we'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself, because I've heard your music, but I don't know much about yourself apart from your amazing social media videos, which you've got these like outstanding locations wherever you are. So we'll talk about that in a bit anyway. So yeah, tell me a bit about yourself. Where you're from?
Yeah, so I've been in the music industry for about 15 years.
Okay.
I originally started as a DJ, working across the London circuit as resident DJ, and over the years transitioned into being a music producer. I've done all sorts really. So in the whole kind of DJ realm, I've been a radio DJ, an events DJ, corporate, wedding, club, resident, artist, headliner, warm-up DJ, open DJ. I've done it all across the board. I've played all around the world. I think I've DJed in almost 35 countries. About a year ago, I launched Vizano, which is my artist project, a new name. So for some people, even though it might seem that I'm a relatively new artist, I do have over, 12 to 13 years experience in the industry. But Vizano is the main project I'm focusing on now in terms of the music I'm making and releasing and how I want to portray and represent myself. I also play the piano, guitar. I've done a little bit of songwriting, but for the most part, it's mainly producing electronic music and performing electronic music and DJing around the world. Yeah.
How did you said you played piano and guitar? I'm assuming is that your background? Did you learn that from when you were a child, or is that something you picked up on the way?
So I learned that at a very young age. When I was about 7 years old, I learned the guitar and piano, just as many other people, just learned it in school. My parents encouraged me to learn music. I wasn't really at top of the class when it came to those instruments, but I did have a passion in just playing the guitar. I was really into rock and heavy metal music when I was a teenager, and even today, like I don't play piano and guitar as part of my performance. Like I wouldn't be able to play live as part of a band or to do it as a solo performance, but I do use those instruments when I'm in the studio making music. And I think from those early ages of learning these instruments, that really opened my eyes and ears to creating music and experimenting with music. And so from a very early age, I always had this interest in creating music and melodies. And I guess going all the way back, I have my parents to thank for that, even though they don't come from a musical background. I just think their push initially for me to do these extracurricular things really helped me to where I am today.
Were your parents passionate about music in general, even though they might not be from a musical background? Were they passionate about? Because I've seen one of your stories. I think one of your mum's favorite songs was the song from Baji Ramastana. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, like, so I'm South Asian, and I guess with many other South Asians, music is quite often a part of our household. From the movies and Bollywood movies we grew up watching, to buying CDs and cassette tapes from Wembley Market or wherever, because I grew up in Northwest London. And obviously in the sort of Indian music, Indian theatre and Bollywood scene, there's a strong link between, movies and music. And so it's always been a part of my family and extended family. And I mean, but it kind of just stops there. No one really in my family dived into it deeper in terms of making it a career, pursuing it further than just being a casual listener. So I'm sort of like one of the first to actually do that, at least in my family and extended family.
So when they encouraged you to take up guitar and piano, that was just for sort of extracurricular activities, is that correct?
Yeah, I guess just to widen my horizons and just to, I don't know, maybe just become like a better student. As with many parents, they want the best for their kids and try to give them, as many opportunities as they can. So music was one part of it, but also sports as well. So I think growing up, I played a lot of sports. It wasn't just always about textbook and homework, which is important, and I did have to grind through a lot of that. But I'd say my parents also did encourage me to do these other things as well, and other hobbies. And from a young age, you kind of like don't realize how much it affects you and how important it is. But as the decades go by and as you become older, you kind of realize that, those decisions, even though some of them may have seemed small, that your parents make, it can shape you in terms of being a more rounded, diverse individual. At least that's my opinion anyway.
No, I agree. It's just interesting you say that. This is just a sort of a humorous note to what you're saying. Sometimes I'm not saying your parents do that, but sometimes parents encourage you to do these things because when you do your doctor's course, whatever doctor like your medical degree, it looks really good on your CV and stuff. Like, oh, he plays piano and on your application when you're applying to university. So that's one of the things as well that Asians do as well, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't be surprised if my parents thought the same thing as well. And growing up when I was working hard to get into the university I wanted to, that was also on my mind as well. I never really thought of music as a career.
Yeah.
It was only later in my life when I decided to make it into a career. But, just like a lot of South Asians, I think I just saw it in that light. I had my goal set on just getting a good paying corporate job, and I thought that would be the rest of my life. And then, it just kind of things changed, after I finished my studies and went into the corporate world, and eventually somehow I ended up in the music industry. I wouldn't say that there's some musicians and producers who I admire who that's all they've done from a very young age. They've started when they were like kids or teenagers, and it's all they know, and they become these amazing artists and musicians. For me, it wasn't really like that. I went down a traditional route of just getting good grades, getting a good job, going to a good school, going to a good university. And, I still had to work hard to achieve all that. But then once I had achieved some of it, I made the transition into music, which was previously a hobby on the side. But then it morphed into a serious career.
So how did that happen? I'm really interested in that, especially because that transition from your corporate career to music. If you could take us step by step how that happened, if you can remember, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So after university, I got a job in investment banking. So I used to work in investment banking, technology, and quants. I was super passionate about that initially. I thought that was going to be my path after studies. That was going to be, the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I took it quite seriously, but within a very short period of time. At the same time, music was still a hobby. I'm still DJing on the side. But I never really saw DJing as, a long-term career.
Hi guys, this is Raj Kaul. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to support the rest of my music, if you could go and check me out on Spotify, on Apple Music, and add my songs to your playlists if you like them. Thank you.
So can I ask you there?
Yeah.
So we'll come back to that. How did you get into DJing?
So, I mean, that's kind of like it all kind of happened, I guess, around the same time that I started working in the corporate world.
Okay.
So I guess towards the end of university, I think I basically partnered with one of my friends who wanted to do like start an events company, do private hire events. So corporate events, garden parties, family parties, and then later on that transitioned to weddings. So him and I, we launched this company together, and we ran it for about, I think maybe 12 years. And that's how I initially started DJing, is doing events with him, and then moved into like the South Asian wedding scene, being like a wedding DJ. And as I was progressing with that, I also got exposed to doing different venues as well, bars, clubs, and then eventually radio came on a bit later. So while all that was going on, I still had this day corporate job. But within the first few years of that corporate job, I realized that that's not really what I wanted to do. The main reason being is because it was an environment where everyone works extremely hard. Yeah. Everyone is super dedicated to making money for this company. And I have no problem working hard and doing really long hours, but I just couldn't justify doing that for something which didn't really have a deeper meaning and didn't really kind of connect with my inner soul, so to speak. Like I couldn't justify working that hard for a company just to make money and bonuses. I wanted to do something with more substance that, really kept me content, fulfilled, what I wanted to do, soulfully, and ultimately leave somewhat of a legacy, in years to come.
That's quite a big step, isn't it? Like going from an investment banker to DJing full time.
Yeah.
What was that transition like, and was there any backlash to that?
Yeah, I mean, so as I mentioned before, so I was running this company and doing events with my friend and business partner at the time. So it wasn't like I had nothing going on in the music side and I just decided to just make a 360 switch. So I was already working, days and nights, weekends, almost burning candles at both ends of the stick. And yeah, it got to that point where I was having some success on the DJing side of things. The corporate world was okay. I wasn't really hitting the targets that I wanted to hit. I just became less interested in that. I found the work boring. I didn't really get excited about it. Like doing my 9 to 5, or it was banking, so like 9 to 7, wasn't really exciting me that much. What was exciting me was the nighttime life. So 7 p.m. onwards, when I got to leave my day job and go DJ for events or clubs, that's where my passion was. And I decided to make the switch at an age where I thought there was less risk in terms of everything else that was happening in my personal life. I guess one question I get asked a lot, which is what you mentioned, is supposed to some backlash from family. So yeah, typical Indian family, they will always think and worry about, your income and stability. There was a bit of that. But I think my parents and family just trusted me to be responsible. And as long as I could have enough to survive, I think they were okay with it. And then over the years, they kind of slowly saw that I was having some success when it came to music and DJing. And then when I began to do these really big events and traveling around the world and having these amazing experiences, I think, deep down inside, they think it's it was a good decision for me to make.
The vibe I get from you,
Yeah.
Donna, is that you're very goal orientated. That's the vibe I get straight away from you. Is that correct? Or it just seems like you're very focused, very goal oriented. If you got your mind to something, that's it. Even though you've transitioned, you think, bang, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it all the way, sort of thing. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yeah, I've always been quite a goal-oriented, disciplined person. I mean, in my like studio now, I've got like notes on the chart and goals, and it's a really organized, I say organized, maybe that's not the right word. It's a really, I guess, semi-structured and disciplined music career I'm trying to work with. It's maybe not for everyone. I think when you're creating art, always treating it very structured like a business, I don't think that always works. But there are definitely benefits of having those elements in your life, I feel. But yeah, I like to have goals, and I like to aim for things as well. I mean, it wasn't always like that in the early stages of my DJ career. I thought I had goals, and I thought I was, having some success in reaching certain targets. But when I look back on it, I could have probably done with a bit more, even more structure and even more discipline. I mean, I just think that if you're the kind of musician or artist who wings it and hopes for the best and just kind of sees it as it goes, I think there is benefit in doing that. I think that can lead to some good things. But I also see many artists and musicians do that for years and years and get nowhere. So the way I work is I like to have some structure and targets and goals, and it's also like, a good feeling as well. Once you reach a goal or target and you can tick it off a list, I think that releases some level of endorphins and puts you in a good mood. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I do it.
And it's very admirable in the sense of that I speak to musicians, and I don't think every musician does that. As we were saying, I mean, I do it to a certain extent. I've got goals and stuff, so it's really sort of refreshing to see that as an artist, because I just get that vibe from you straight away that Vizano is just actually focused, and as you're saying, you've got your goals written out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just kind of just very quickly, just to interrupt you there. I mean, like one thing my mentor said to me recently was, when he was kind of vetting me for his mentorship program, he said to me that I'm someone that looks like he's got everything he's got his together, kind of thing. And I've always had that kind of mentality, is being not just thinking about music, but just as a person, being someone who has their life in order. Like, it's like I've never been a reckless person. I've never been super overstressed and all over the place. I've always been someone that more or less has their life in order to some extent. Not to say that I have like days and weeks where things are crazy and a bit disorganized. I'm only human, but I've always been that kind of person. Yeah.
Because some people, as I said, like I've been with musicians who sometimes the only way they produce music is in the studio at 3:00 in the morning, bonged out basically without being sort of getting too much into that, but using recreational products to basically inspired, and that's a lot of the music scene. So it's really refreshing. But one end, I've experienced that, and now I'm talking to you, which is like totally the other end, which is a lot more professional.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point that you bring up, actually, and I think there's benefits of both. Definitely, like I've been working like in this, for example, like I would have a whole day in the studio from 9 to 9, and I would have it really, really structured, but I wouldn't really get much done. Like it just wouldn't come out. So even though I'll be working hard, just what I'm making just isn't there. But then there'll be times where like 11 p.m. Or even late at night, an idea will spark and something will just come out, and then I'll be able to do it really quickly. It's like it's always combining creativity and art with business, you know. And I think it's about finding that balance. If you always want to create a hit within a normal working day, that might not always happen. I think there needs to be a bit of flexibility to let that creativity come out, whether that's, you know, a weird time of the night, or whether that's doing something to yourself or putting something in your body, if that helps. I mean, if you look back at some of the greatest hits that we've ever heard from the 70s and 80s, and if you look at Queen and Freddie Mercury, you know, some of their hits were produced while these guys were just off their face on drugs and all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's a bit of an extreme way of explaining it, but yeah, I mean, sometimes that's when the magic can happen. But the way I see it is that even though it's okay to go in that direction if it helps, I think overall, if you have some kind of structure where you're saying, okay, by the end of the month, I want to try and make 2 songs. Okay, doesn't matter how I do it, whether it's during the day, at night, whether it's if I'm drunk or smoking or whatever. If you have at least some kind of overarching goal to some extent, I think that does help, rather than just completely freestyling it and seeing where it goes.
Absolutely fascinating. I'm actually fascinated by you. On it, as I said, because a lot of the interviews I do, we don't actually touch upon this side of it, the professionalism and the because it's a whole different field, isn't it? That kind of discipline and having goals, and have you met those goals, and you know, and that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? That kind of structure you were saying earlier. So yeah. So from there, how did you? So let's go back to your career. You started DJing. Was that DJing full time then?
So yeah, when I left my corporate job, I ended up DJing full time. So 3 to 5 nights a week, sometimes a lot more. And I still am a DJ, I still DJ professionally. But I was doing, I guess, the more quote unquote, I would say maybe like expected traditional route of DJing, resident DJing, for a long time, 10 plus years, which is one approach of making, of having a DJ career. But over the last couple of years, way more focused in being an artist and musician and releasing original.
We're going to get to that part next year. So how did you transition from there? And also, just before that, what genre of music? I'm assuming it's electronic that you were DJing, or was it more varied? Or
no, it was really varied actually. Okay. So I was a multi-genre open format DJ, which means I played a variety of different genres. I think some people, when they say they're open format, they may only mean, a selected set of genres, for example, R&B, hip hop, South Asian, house. So I did all that plus a lot more. So I also played a lot of rock, indie, jazz, a lot of world music,
I love it.
Latin. So yeah, Latin, Spanish, a lot of African music. I was playing Afro beats way before it became popular. Like we're talking about 10, 11 years ago. When I was traveling to the US, I was telling all the DJs who had no clue about Afrobeats. I kept on telling them this is going to be like a huge thing in years to come. And that was back in 2013, 2014. So I was really like a proper open format multi-genre DJ. And then, in the South Asian scene, I did like, Desi events and South Asian weddings, playing like, Bollywood, Punjabi, Asian, garage, and even like old school folk music, and even like garba music. I did it all across the board really. And then as the years went by, I've always been into electronic music, but ever since, I would say since the pandemic, I've transitioned more into making electronic music a focus of where I'm taking my sound. And I guess the key inspirations actually come from my history of having all those years of experience in the club at these events, playing all these different styles of genres, is taking all that experience, all my knowledge of playing all these different styles of music, and incorporating into that, incorporating that into the electronic music that I'm making. So yeah, it's taking everything that I've known and just honing it into electronic music, which is what I'm doing now.
So how did you start from? Did you just have an idea that I'm going to start producing one day, or was it just how did that progression happen?
I think with DJs turning into producers, it's quite often a common and natural progression. You spend so long playing other people's music, and then you dig for music. Sometimes you dig deeper and you find edits and remixes and bootlegs. And then gradually you may start to experiment and make your own versions of those tracks, which is what I started to do, making remixes, edits, mashups. They're not so difficult to do, and the end result is usually good, and you can have something to play in your sets. And then I started to just make my own beats. I knew that if I wanted to get to a bigger stage, I had to release my music. So I started doing that about 8 to 10 years ago. And it really just happened very organically. Initially, like many young producers, I thought it would just take like a year or two and then I would be really good. But that's definitely not the case. The first year or two, if I look back on the music I made, it was absolute rubbish. And it's supposed to not be good. Like you're supposed to start off making really crap, and just over time, keep on doing it, rinse and repeat, and then just hopefully you get better and better. You learn, and it's like a skill set. It's like playing an instrument. You're not going to be an expert at the piano or the guitar after 1 year. It's going to take years to get really good. And I've kept on growing, and I've kept on learning ever since. But yeah, I mean that progression from DJ to producer, it's quite common for many. I think for some producers in the electronic scene, some of them actually start off in the studio as producers, and once they have a bit of success and they get invited to play at shows, then they will learn how to DJ. For me, it was the other way around. I always started DJing first, and then moved into making music.
Hi guys, this is Raj Kaul. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you want to support the rest of my music, if you could go and check me out on Spotify, on Apple Music, and add my songs to your playlists if you like them. Thank you. तेरी जद आउंदी सोहणीए सां साडे रुक जांदे ने
So when you were transitioning, did you think, okay, I'm gonna pick what door I'm gonna pick, and how did you come to those decisions of okay, did you say I'm gonna pick you? What research did you do? Because it's not a simple case of basically. I want to get into the nitty gritty of how you got from there to there. If that helps.
Yeah, sure. So I guess like many young producers, but we don't really know what we're doing. We just go online, Google, YouTube. Ableton came up quite a lot. So a lot of the producer artists that I admired were using Ableton. I saw like Skrillex and all these other producers use Ableton. I had heard of some of the other DAWs. Like when I was a teenager, I used to dabble with Acid Pro and a few others. But yeah, I mean, obviously I knew about Logic, and I think Ableton just, from my research, seemed like the easiest to make DJ-friendly mashups and edits. So I started using that, and then I figured out that you could use it for producing. And then I started to just, make beats. And you start with what you've got. So with a DAW like Ableton, you have some built-in sounds and presets, and you kind of dabble with that, and then you kind of experiment, see what you like, what you don't like, and if you want to improve on that, you have to learn how to do that, and then again back to Google, back to YouTube, and then over time you just kind of, I guess for me, I didn't really take a course initially, even though I think there probably are benefits of taking a music course, but I picked up a lot of knowledge from certain YouTube channels, and over the years, as I try to get better, I decided which courses I wanted to take. So I took a few online courses, and then it eventually, started paying more and more money for courses, which I think would improve my my skill set. So, yeah, again, there's nothing really, I guess, unusual about my approach. It's just everyday crafting and learning.
It's not unusual, but it's still really interesting because there are other approaches as well. And I just get the impression, did you, like, a lot of people would just go to YouTube and that's it, but the fact that you enhanced it with courses as well, did that come in? Did your goal system come into place with that as well? Like, did you use that to achieve what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the courses online, initially I wasn't really sure what I needed to improve on. But then as time went by, I realized, okay, I need to get better at mixing my tracks. So
I tried. Yourself? You mix the master your song yourself?
I don't master myself, but I do. For some of my tracks, I mix them myself. For others,
very keen.
Oh, right. Oh, thank you. I've I mean, I guess now I'm in a position where I can mix my own tracks. Like the track I've got releasing, the track which I'm releasing next week, that's mixed by me. But there's been others where I've done like 40 to 50% of the mix. I've done it as best as I can, and if I'm still not happy with it, then I'll send it to a professional mix engineer to take it to that next level. Mastering, I decided a long time ago never to do mastering myself. I always prefer to give that to someone else with a fresh pair of ears. But yeah, we go back to what you said earlier. I think finding the right courses does help, because there's a lot on YouTube and you can get lost and confused, and you can pick up things which can actually do more harm than good. So I think investing early on in some really reputable training and courses would have probably helped me get to where I am today a bit quicker, and would have cut out some of the fluff and noise that I went through.
So did you mentioned earlier that you had a mentor?
Yeah.
What stage of your career was that at?
Oh, very, very late. Like, he only became my mentor about 2 months ago. So, yeah, I mean, one piece of advice I would give to any musician, young musicians, young producers, DJs, is see if you can find someone that can be your mentor. All these years, I never had a mentor. I did everything myself. I've always been a very independent person. I always think that I can do things myself, figure out myself. I think there is some benefit to that. I think you can develop skills and you can get really good at things by doing it yourself. But one regret I do have, if I could change things growing up, would be to find a mentor early on. So my mentor now is someone who just came on board like 2 months ago. And I guess the advice he's been giving me is actually more on the, I guess, mindset and psychological advice of being an artist. So yeah, it's interesting. Some of the sessions we have are almost a bit like therapy, musical therapy, as opposed to like the technicalities of what we do.
It's really really interesting, because see, I see you like sort of as I'm talking to you, sort of our mindsets are quite similar, which I don't meet many artists have a very similar mindset, goal orientated, having a mentor. Like I've got a vocal mentor, I've got a regular vocal coach that I use constantly, and
nice.
It's because you fast track and you make less mistakes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a psychological part of it as well. You said basically it puts you in the right place, mentally, doesn't it, as well? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all these things like getting a mentor, taking courses, going for training, sometimes you have to invest in this, and it can cost money. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons where some artists don't do it, because they think, well, I don't want to spend this much amount of money if I'm not going to get any end result. And yeah, there is a risk of investing in that and not getting much out of it, but that's where it comes down to you spending the time researching what you're going to invest in, not just money, but time as well. So, to find the right mentor, you need to invest in your own time to actually find out who's the right fit to be your to be your mentor. So yeah, I think allocating some kind of budget in terms of money and time as well early on in the career is definitely helpful.
That's really cool, Vizano.
Yeah.
We're coming to a wrap now because we've actually done 35 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Really, I mean, I can go. I'm good if you want to go for another 5-10 minutes. I'm okay.
But we'll just talk about your tracks, because I'm on Apple Music, so I don't know whether you've got more tracks on there. I've heard 2 of your tracks on there, which is Wasn't Dal, if I pronounced the first part right. I can never pronounce.
Wasn't Dal, yeah.
Yeah, you say it's Arabic, the first part of it.
Oh yeah. So that came out early this year. Wasn't Dal just means rhythm in 2 different languages. Wasn't, I think, is rhythm in Arabic, and Dal is like rhythm in it. Yeah. So I just combined the 2 together because the track has Middle Eastern and Indian influence.
Got that right. And there's another one before that. Was it Behena?
Behena, yeah.
Was it how you pronounce that? Because Behena, I thought was like sister. But it's
exactly. Yeah, Behena. That's what it means. Yeah, it means that. Yeah. So the funny story about the name of that track is the sample is actually taken from an Indian wedding bidai song. So at the end of an Indian wedding, as when the girls leave the family and she's crying, the bidai song plays and it's like an emotional time. This particular song is a bidai song. I think it's called Bahena or Bahena. And I think it's actually about, leaving family, siblings to join a new family. So that's where I sampled it from. I was interested. I couldn't quite get it. I couldn't quite get it. Exactly. Yeah. So it's about like sisterhood and emotion, and I just made it into like an electronic music track, which is something I wanted to kind of experiment with. Is can you make like a cool house track using a vidai track, which is I've never heard anyone play Bahena at the end of an Indian wedding, but it's definitely been played in clubs and festivals. So there is some kind of resemblance to that. Yeah.
Really cool. So just wrapping up, the podcast is about musical excellence. So you've already mentioned quite a lot actually about musical excellence. I think this has been this podcast, this episode, been more about musical excellence than anything else. Especially the way you've communicated and the way you've described your journey. It's like otherwise with other artists, we're talking about the music, we're talking about having a laugh, but this has been quite a very structured and quite a in-depth podcast. So anyway, I'm going to ask you the question: what advice would you give to an up-and-coming producer, singer, or whatever, how to pursue musical excellence?
Yeah, that's quite a big question. So I would probably say take a step back and think about why you really, really want to do it. Have a vision. And I know it's difficult, but if you can vision where you want to be in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, 20 years, and then figure out some kind of high level plan to work backwards from that. And then you can get into a bit of structure and goal setting if you'd like. One piece of advice I heard on another podcast recently, which I found quite helpful, and this was given by a really established and successful music producer in the electronic music scene. And he was basically talking about art and business. So when you're in the studio, it's all well and good, having fun and enjoying what you're doing and making music. But there also has to be at least some thought which goes into the business side of it. So his advice was 60 to 70% of the time in the studio, think with the business side in terms of like, finishing tracks, the type of sound you're trying to make and portray, working on an end product, and then maybe 30 to 40% that can be the more experimental, having fun, and just seeing where things go. I think for some artists the balance is a little bit different, but at least consciously keeping that in mind when you're in a studio making music, or at home making music, wherever you are making music, I think that can have some benefit as well. So the other thing I would say is try, and it's not essential, but if you can get a mentor, or at least have people to be inspired by and to look up to early on in your career, that would do you some good as well, for sure.
Fantastic. So where can we? What's next for you?
Yeah, so this year it's really been about releasing more original music. So I've got a whole bunch. I've got new tracks coming out this year. So my next release is coming out on Friday, the 18th of April. So it may have already come out by the time this podcast come out, perhaps. The track is called Badia, and I've produced a track with an artist, an Afro house artist in India, who goes by the name of House of Tune Man. That's signed to a label called Earthvox. I've also got other tracks which are coming out later this year, which are in the realm of electronic, Indo-South Asian fusion with a bit of ethnic Afro house. That's kind of like my sound. An artist I spoke to recently, he says some really positive things which I didn't really think of before, and he kind of alluded to the fact that I'm starting to have, or already have, my own sound, which is like a Vizano sound, as opposed to, calling it Indo house or Afro house. It's like Vizano house, which is a really nice thing for him to say, and it's kind of got me thinking about the tracks I'm planning on releasing. And then I've also got shows as well in London. So if you want to keep up to date with my tour dates and things like that, you can follow me on Instagram and Spotify, and all the details and dates will be there for sure.
You want to give your social media profile?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's Vizano Music, Vizano Music, on Instagram, TikTok, and you can also search for me on Spotify, Vizano, Vizano.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Vizano, for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. But I want you to hang on afterwards. So I'm just going to say bye to the listeners, and we'll have a chat afterwards.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you so much. That was Vizano. Absolutely fascinating chat, to be fair. A guy who thinks very much like myself in terms of having goals and having structure, and also getting the actual products out as well. So that's the main thing. So anyway, please leave a review, leave comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment, and make sure you follow Vizano on Instagram and everywhere else. So God bless you guys, and see you in 2 weeks.